Today on Clone or Die, we're talking about one of the Marine Corps' best friends, the Benelli M4, known in the military as the M1014. Now, the Benelli M4 was originally developed in the 90s at the request of the US military, who was looking to update their inventory of dated pump-action shotguns they had been using. And there was tons across the board. Everything from Mossbergs to Remingtons to Stevens to Winchesters were all still in inventory. And they wanted to standardize a new semi-automatic shotgun, and frankly, semi-automatic shotguns had existed for almost 100 years at that point. Standardize a new system that they could use as a combat shotgun. So this program was called the JCS, Joint Combat Shotgun, because all the branches would adopt it. Most famously, it is notably used with the Marine Corps, probably more than the other branches are. So typically that's where you'll see it. Although the Army, the Air Force, everyone else did purchase them as well and do have some amount. The Marine Corps got them first and they got the most of them.
Yeah, I'm kind of an expert with a gauge, expert doorman. You know, from my experience in 6 days in Fallujah, me and the Benelli M4, we're good friends.
This shotgun came about just before the global war on terror and cut its teeth in Iraq and Afghanistan. Notably Iraq, where urban combat was the regular and a shotgun might be more useful. But it also found its place in Afghanistan as well as a combat shotgun and a breaching tool. Notably with the British, you'll see a lot of soldiers from the British Army carrying Benellis with EOTechs on top. Typically, ironically, the Americans, when you see them with Benellis, no attachments, nothing mounted, but the British you'll see with red dots. A little unusual. Now this is a commercial Benelli M4 that we purchased. Early commercial Benelli M4s will actually be marked M1014, which was the experimental name, and they'll have a little American flag. Mine is a later production one, so it doesn't have that, unfortunately. It does say Benelli M4, doesn't have the flag the military ones would have. But other than the markings, it is identical to the military one that would be issued in this configuration. I added some Velcro on just so I could use these shotgun cards. That's pretty normal to do across the board with shotguns in the military and civilian world. So I just added that for ease of reloading. Now, when you go out and purchase yourself a Benelli M4, don't get a Turk Nelly. They're pieces of shit. They'll never be as good as a Benelli. These are expensive for a reason, and you'll never find a good Turk Nelly. Honestly, they're probably the only good Turkish companies are Girsan and T-Sauce with their handguns. They've kind of changed the games a little bit for Turkish guns, but we're talking about fine Italian-made masterpieces today, not Turkish pieces of shit. Now, because these guns are made in Italy and imported, you don't get them in this cool military or police configuration. They come with a cucked magazine tube with a shitty gay limiter on it and a crappy full stock instead of the Nito extending stock like this one. I managed to find an original Benelli stock and an original Benelli tube for the 7-round magazine tube. So this gun actually has full original parts. Those are pretty hard to come by these days, but there are a couple aftermarket companies that make stocks and make magazine tubes, so you can kind of simulate this look as well and have the unbastardized civilian version.
The great versatility of shotguns is I can go from full power buckshot to underpowered birdshot to full power slugs, all in one tube. Now today's video is dedicated to all of those veterans out there. You know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm talking Battlefield 3. I'm talking Metro. I'm talking 12 gauge frag rounds. That's who it's dedicated to.
Now, you might be wondering to yourself, 1999, before the global war on terror, why shotgun? Why a shotgun? We think shotguns are outdated. We've got modern rifles, M16s, AK platforms, whatever. Why would a modern military ever want a combat shotgun? Well, there's actually a lot of reasons. I think a good example is Vietnam. When there are a variety of shotguns being utilized at the time, pump-action shotguns are still fairly popular because Vietnam, it's a lot of close engagement distances where shotguns would still be useful. There's a cool anecdote actually from Hue City in a book that I read. It was a book about when the Marines were sieging the city. one thing they said was that they actually raided the local police stations to get their shotguns because they wanted the shotguns for the urban fighting because they were so effective. And to me, it makes sense. Loaded with buckshot or slugs in urban fighting where somebody might slip down an alleyway and be gone, or slip in a doorway real quick, and you might only have the chance to hit them once. Hitting them with a green tip M855 might not be the most effective thing versus hitting them with a shotgun slug or buckshot is definitely going to hurt them a little bit more in those close distances, as well as it can double as a breaching tool. You can shoot locks off with it. You can just easily change the rounds out. So I can definitely see its usefulness there. I mean, hell, the British carried it in Afghanistan, which is not exactly the most urban environment in the world, and they found it useful enough to justify carrying this, because the shitty thing about weapon systems like these is this is not your primary weapon system. You have to carry this in addition to your rifle. So it's fucking heavy.
Shotguns are great tools for breaching as well. I'd say we're in the door.
Now, traditionally, these are going to be 7-round tubes, 1 in the pipe. But with the Benelli shotguns, notable, which is pretty neat, is you can ghost load 1 in the loading gate. So you can actually have 9 rounds of buckshot or slugs or whatever you have on tap, ready to fire. And this gun is not, it's long, but it's not crazy long. And to have 9 rounds of 12 gauge, and with the Benelli, it's definitely one of the lightest recoiling shotguns you'll fire. So you can get those rounds off quick in a system like this. Now, notable thing about the Benelli M4 as a departure from the previous Benelli Super 90 series, the M1, the M2, and the M3, are that this gun actually functions with a gas system. So this has a gas system right here under the tube that cycles the gun and keeps it more reliable. Those guns function basically on direct blowback. So they're probably not as reliable. You might be able to tune them a little bit better. Competition shooters, as quite often you'll see them with Benelli M2s, but in the military context, this system with its gas system is way better. You're not shooting super light loads. You want something that's going to mitigate that recoil a little bit better. You're shooting, heavy, full power military buckshot, or maybe even magnum shells you're shooting out of this thing, and you want a shotgun that's going to be able to take that abuse, and this is it. Now, probably the number 1 challenge faced with these guns is carrying the ammo, because it's another ammo that you have to carry in addition to your M16 mags. I've done the placards that I have here just on the Velcro. I can carry them in my M16 mag pouches right here. A little bit tight with these, and I can easily just rip this one off, slap a new one on. I also kind of have this belt right here with 12 gauge on it that I could reload with. There are different methods of reloading. You can reload with your left hand. You can put the shotgun over your shoulder and reload this way. I'm not going to say anyone is more correct than the other. It's just whatever works for you, whatever you want to do, go with. There's different methods for reloading a shotgun. It's not like an AR or an AK where there's pretty much one good method. I will say on the Benelli, it does have multiple positions, the stock. It does have a center one. It's kind of hard to get it into. So I can't even do it right now. It's really more or less just an in or out type stock, like an MP5, fully collapsed or fully in. And when you're aiming it, I would say maybe just a little bit too long. Something else I added just because I wanted to be able to have a flashlight is there's a company that makes this little piece. It replaces your sling swivel. It just has a bent piece with a Magpul rail attached to it, so you could put a flashlight on it. Surefire, they did make a railed handguard as well. They don't make it anymore. That was a long time ago. There are a couple of photos of some SAS guys with those railed handguards, and they got some cool setups on their Benellis. But other than that, it was never really used with those attachments in the US military. This is more or less how you see it, just bog standard.
In the words of Clint Smith from Thunder Ranch, handguns put bullets in people, rifles put bullets through people, and shotguns take chunks off of people.
Now, the Benelli M4, by today's standards, might be a little bit dated, but it still sets the gold standard for semi-automatic shotguns, of which I can only think of 2. The Benelli M4 and the Beretta 1301. Those are the gold standard of semi-automatic shotguns, and ironically, both companies are owned by Beretta. So I'm seeing a little bit of a pattern here as to who makes good semi-automatic shotguns.
If there's any complaints with the Benelli M4, they are minor. This button to release the bolt, a little bit too small, but it makes up for it with the Argos gas system that has run everything from extra light birdshot to full power rifle slugs flawlessly.
The Benelli M4 is a weapon that would have been cut its teeth primarily for the US military in places like Fallujah and Ramadi, heavy, densely populated urban centers, or urban population centers, where the Marines or the Army have to go in house to house, clearing out insurgent activities. And having a weapon like this, you might say, hey, if you have an M4, why would you want, or an M16, why would you want a shotgun? Why would you carry that in a place like Fallujah or Ramadi? I mean, realistically, a lot of the distances they're dealing with are under 100 meters, and especially if you're in house-to-house clearing, it's within 10 feet that you're shooting. This is going to be an effective weapon, more effective than an M16 firing green tip at 10 feet would be. Maybe not if it was firing 77 grain OTMs, but unfortunately that's not what the military gets. They get shitty green tip ammo at the time. And those were not necessarily the most effective at stopping people who did not have body armor on. So having something like this is definitely understandable.
I am John Marine Corps.
Yeah, I'm John Marine Corps. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's me. And with the Benelli, my best friends, together, we're a dangerous combination. Thanks for getting through the video on the Benelli M1014 or Benelli M4. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next Clone or Die video.